I am Doomsvince. This is day 120 of Spawn Year.
Well, Spawn, after 2 short, glorious weeks apart, we meet again. Oh, how I long to strike your insolent whining and your never-ending compulsiveness from my memory. But I never forgot. Never even tried. How could I? The last single shred of knowledge pertaining to Spawn Doomsvince allowed me to keep when he erased the rest was the issue number of the Spawn comic I read just before falling into that coma, and that was issue 220. Not to mention my unfortunate look ahead when I visited the open grave the first time. I knew there was plenty more of this title for Doomsvince to torture me with, and Spawn's return was only a matter of time. I was prepared for this day, and now that it has arrived so soon, partly because I couldn't finish Spawn the Eternal and good riddance, I march boldly once again into certain darkness. Reading this issue, it was almost as if Todd McFarlane knew it had been a while since I'd read issue 70 because he spent so much time recapping the last issue. He's got a co-writer now, Brian Holguin, but I'd never know it if I hadn't looked at the credits. So little happens this issue, I wonder if, for a second time, I might not have noticed if I'd skipped ahead to the next issue. I guess the refresher was slightly useful for me since it's been a while, but if I'd gone on directly from 70 to 71, I'd feel cheated out of several pages that should have been used to progress the story instead of stalling. I had Billy Idol's rebel yell blaring in my head as I read, more. More of Cagliostro giving Spawn the same lecture about learning from his mistakes, facing the truth about what he is and how it affects the world around him, and more of Spawn acting like a 2-year-old and belligerently insisting on going along just as he has been. More of Wanda worrying about her daughter's feral outbursts when she's been separated from Spawn's shoelace, and more of Sam and Twitch still trying to find Spawn. And each of these subplots, such as they are, inch forward ever so slightly, like a timid toddler afraid to get in the shallow end of a swimming pool. Cog blathers on more about the Dead Zone, that piece of heaven in the middle of Rat City that suddenly gives Spawn a real vulnerability, and like the moron he is, it never occurs to him to move again, so he's going to get beat up there again in this very issue. The only thing Cog says that even resembles new information is this: I don't know all the answers or I wouldn't be here. That smells like a cop-out to me. I don't think McFarlane knows what Cog is and is not supposed to know at this point. Otherwise, maybe Cog would A, be less pointlessly cryptic about what he really does know that he always ends up spelling out in plain English anyway, at times that never feel any more opportune than the first time he revealed something in vague, wise sage speak, and B, we'd have some explanation as to how he knows stuff he shouldn't, like every detail of Simmons' murder and the fact that Spawn met God at Heaven's Embassy when he wasn't there to witness any of those events. And Spawn continues making the same stupid mistakes and is never actually responsible for any real accomplishments. Without even understanding how, Spawn summoned up a wave of karmic force. Sounds like a Pokemon move. Purging the twisted, malignant evil from the madman's soul and turned it back on him, referring to what Spawn did to his old best buddy, the Freak. Does McFarlane have some personal grudge against his own fictional creation? Sure, writers should make life hell for their protagonists. What's dramatic and endearing about stories is seeing characters overcome adversity, watching how they handle internal and external conflicts. But Spawn just hates everything, lets every tiny little thing get under his skin, and wins all the big slugfest because you've got to have Spawn to make Spawn comics. Except Curse of the Spawn, I guess. If McFarlane could be considered the father of Al Simmons, he is a cruel, cruel parent indeed. Meanwhile, Sam and Twitch almost get their car towed as the police kick them out of the alleys, even though as PIs, they have every legal right to be there. So several issues of Sam and Twitch looking for Spawn for like the 4th or 5th time, suddenly obsessed with why Spawn strung up Kincaid in their office because McFarlane just thought of it, and they're back to square one. Bendis managed to have them foil a plot to take over most of the city's organized crime in about this many issues. I can't believe I read this narration box on the first page. The alleyways yawn. That's how dull this comic is. The alleyways are yawning now. And there where 95% of the actual action in this book has happened. And then we've got Terry acting out of character, dismissing his wife's concerns about Cyan's behavior, a scene that ends with Wanda saying, "What happened to the man I married?" An outburst completely unwarranted by the situation. Maybe if Terry had been this insensitive toward his wife repeatedly, but this is out of nowhere. It looks like Spawn's attitude is rubbing off on Terry now, even though he's written Al off as certifiable. But good drama comes from random shouting matches, right? Then there's some really blatant commentary about people's lack of empathy for the homeless when a one-dimensional inhuman cop named Boyle, no less, looks at some of the bums mowed down during last issue's turf war and says, "As far as I'm concerned, these bums aren't even people." Okay. The folks in Rat City are forgotten outcasts, society wants to ignore them, Spawn feels the same way and that's why he's there. Let's move on. At the end, Spawn gets attacked by a vampire out of nowhere who works for Heaven and gets Spawn back into that dead zone. I don't know, Spawn, maybe you should figure out exactly how far that area that takes away your powers extends. Maybe grab some chalk and draw around it or something, and then never go there. Surely when you're as powerful as Spawn, staying away from a particular city block isn't a tall order. Finally, the angel Bootsy berates the vampire for breaking the rules, to be continued. You know, McFarlane used to be good at cliffhangers. Right now, I'm still sympathizing with the alleyways. Signed, Captain Logan.